Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Hello, Kori. This is Kori Messer. She's a speaker, online creator, course creator, and entrepreneur. Kori is the former certified personal trainer and wellness director who quit her high-paying job in the fitness career to become, she knew that she wanted more true freedom and was about a lot more than the physical fitness. And she had been helping thousands of women gain soul freedom ever since. She helps women get unstuck, reveal their internal greatness, and guiding them on how to use their gifts to experience more peace, joy, and freedom. Kori's gentle and firm, faith-forward approach is full of support, accountability, and results. She is an inspired life strategist, which means that she gets to empower women to be God-driven leaders who shine light upon darkness so the next generation is better off than we are for this one. As a result, women discover and embrace their God-given purpose and gain clarity on how to inspire, uplift, and encourage other women to do the same. This is how we lift each other up, empower one another, and really start living as we are designed to. Kori is a Christian mom, wife, and CPT, all about helping women acknowledge their value, discover their voice, and reclaim victory over their life. And this is part of her journey and why she's here to talk to you guys about living fearlessly. So Kori, welcome. Thank you so much for your time. We're so excited. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm good. I'm so excited to be here. And I feel like, a lot of times we get these introductions, right? These biographies, and they're really exciting and they give us a brief summary. But I'm really excited to just dive into like, what does that mean? What's all the words. So thank you so much for having me here. I'm pumped to just like dive in and see where the conversation goes.
Yeah, let's do it. So I love starting off with relatable things, and I would love for you to tell us something that's interesting about you and about your life, your family, whatever you would like to share, something about you.
Yeah. So something that's really interesting, I guess, is that I'm legally blind in one eye. And so what's crazy is what I do is I help people get clarity on their vision for their life. So I find it kind
I
of
love it.
I find it super ironic that I would have this issue and really for about 10 years of my life, I would say it was a miracle my eyes corrected to perfect vision, and didn't have to wear anything, and now I'm on the decline with age. But anywho, I think it's super ironic. That's absolutely what I do with women, and the struggle is real.
Yeah, for sure. So which eye is it? Right or left?
See, I always have to do the test because it's been that way my whole life. So my brain only filters through one eye, so it's my left eye.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, if they tried to correct it, I would have an equilibrium issue, and I would like legit walk into walls. So it's not correctable, and I'm a twin, so we're not gonna play the blame game. But I'm blaming it on my twin. I think he kicked me and messed up my nerve. There's a little extra guacamole for you. That's what we're going with.
I love that. I love that you're a twin too. And you said he, so you have a brother.
Yep.
That's awesome. Cool. And he doesn't have anything with his eyes, so yeah, we'll say that he did it.
Yeah. Well, we'll blame it, not blame it on him. Yeah. It's funny because while we're on the subject of relatability,
Yeah.
he's always been a lot more dominant personality. I've always been a lot more like fine with being in the background. Ironic, we're on this, right? But so when we were born, he took up like 80% of the womb, I think. I'm just throwing out a percentage, but the majority. And they had to kind of slide me over. So I've always kind of been the one that isn't as overt, right? Like out in the open.
Yeah.
And then he had to kick me while I was down. But that's part of, I think, living fearlessly, right? Is this pursuit, like having this courage.
Yeah.
Even when something is scary, that we go forward right through the fear. And so that's why I love what you're doing. I just think it's incredible. And a lot of times I feel like women specifically feel like we can't be like graceful and a gladiator at the same time. It's like we can't be gentle and firm. And part of my mission, and I believe part of yours as well, is to like get rid of that notion that you can be both and. You don't have to be either or. And so going from being, in the tiny corner of the womb to going out and speaking in front of thousands at, events and that sort of stuff, that would be a message. If you get nothing else, from this blog that you guys are tuning into, know that you can be both and really dive into what it is you're called to do. But I mean, I could get on a whole soapbox, so we'll just let it.
I love it. You're passionate about helping other people with that. And I love that. It's funny how, like you said, being legally blind, like that's your interesting fact that you share. And a lot of times that people don't realize those little interesting facts have like taken you through, like how you said that translates into you help people get their vision and, with their life and those things, like how they go together is very interesting. How we may think that that's something that's not a purposeful thing, but it definitely is, and it kind of translates into your story. So I love that you shared those things. So let's talk about fear. So when fear is holding you down and where you are mentally with fear and holding you back from things that you need to work through, like how did that make you feel? And tell us more about that for you.
Yeah, so for me, when I think of fear is like a controlling thing. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm a God girl, so I'm going to reference scripture. But in the Bible, it talks about, I think it's 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7, something like that. But it talks in there about how God gives us a spirit of love and power and a sound mind, right? And so sound mind and fear, like you get that's coming from the enemy. That is not coming from God. And so if you're a believer, if you're not a believer, I think we can agree that fear is something trying to control you, right? It controls you. You feel not good enough. You feel like you don't have the capacity or the gifting or the resources to do whatever it is, the thing is. And so for me, when I'm in that space, it's really chaotic. It's really unsettling. It's really debilitating, and it can be very debilitating, but most importantly, it's limiting. I feel like it limits me from like reaching my capacity. And I see it over and over again with clients where I'm like, sweet Jesus, like you have so much potential, and I know you're asking this question specific to me. And so my hope is that people will be able to see themselves a bit in my story, but a little bit about my story. My most challenging time was in 2010, and I had three major tragedies in a span of about 9 months. So interesting that 9 months, right? That's a gestation period that we would be talking about the womb earlier, right?
Yeah.
And so that ultimately led to my breakdown. I was consumed by fear and anxiety. And so it was this place of like, I had to stop the hamster wheel of those limiting beliefs, and I had to make a choice. And so that's ultimately how I kind of got out of that revolving door, that continuous cycle of negative, limiting thoughts that were controlling me. Is I just made a choice, like I'm done. I'm gonna flip the script, if you will. I'm gonna flip the script, and I'm gonna stop thinking about those negative limiting beliefs, and I'm gonna shift my focus onto what I can do, what I get to do. And when I did that, it was a game changer. That's when the breakdown led to a breakthrough, which was awesome.
Yep.
The breakdown was tough, and it's because I stayed in those thoughts.
Right. So let's dive right into talking about that a little bit, because that's my next question. When you are working towards breaking free of those fears and, working through them, and you're moving in a new direction. So obviously we have relationships, friendships that morph into something different or fall away with who we are becoming and as we are doing those things. So how did relationships kind of shift for you with all the tragedies that you had happen in that small frame of time? Did people step up and support you more, the community? Like, tell us more about that, like your mental state where it was, but then now relationship wise.
Yeah, so really out of desperation, because I had no other options, I was actually open to receiving the help that had been around me through the whole process. But I didn't realize, because I was blinded and consumed. I had like this tunnel vision of, my current challenges. And so that was one way that it was limited. That was one way that the enemy was keeping me small. So when I made that choice, I always go back to the story. Like I was legit in my little 2-bedroom apartment. At the time I was married to somebody else. So divorce was one of those traumatic things that happened. I also had a miscarriage, and I lost a sibling. And so it was like, bam, like everything,
Yeah.
the things I identified as, a sister, a spouse, a mom, those were ripped away from me. And so what I felt in that moment was like, I'm not meant to have relationship. I'm not good enough to have lasting relationship. And so
Wow.
that was a lie, right? Like,
Right. Wow. Like nobody wants that.
right. And I took that on as my truth. And so when I was like, I'm choosing me, it's like, I've got to figure out who I am as a woman, as a person, right? As a daughter of the king. And so when I did that and I started figuring out like, what does that mean? And just kind of going down that journey, it, I always say like it was unveiled, right? It was revealed
Right.
to the people that were there for me in the first place. So I had the experience of both ends. I had the experience of both losing certain relationships that weren't serving me. And that sounds selfish initially. I used to have a hard time saying that, but
Yeah.
an abusive relationship isn't serving you, right?
Right.
So learning which ones to let go. And when I did that, and I think this is the message of hope, when I released that, and actually, Rebecca, we were just talking about this before we hopped on here. When I released that, it's like it created the space to invite in those supportive people that were trying to reach out to me the whole time. And these were people like my mom, who, at least in my situation, I have a tremendous relationship with my mom, but I wasn't inviting her in because, that would be too vulnerable. She'd have to know all my stuff as an adult. So when I made that choice and I was like, I choose me, and like some relationships left, and that was hard and painful because they were familiar, but it opened me up to receive those that were around me. But the other thing that happened is I really started I boldly stepped into who I really was designed to be, and that made some people uncomfortable. And so I think, for those of you that are watching, if you're going through that experience and relationships are either changing or dissolving, just explore why that's happening. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
And creating space to invite in what it is, the answer that you're looking way in the distance for, but it's like right in your backyard, or it's right
Yeah.
in front of you. And that's kind of what happened to me. But it was hard because it was like, I felt like I was trying to go back to those old stories, like I'm not good enough and what am I doing wrong? And I wasn't doing anything wrong. It was being authentically who I was, that people couldn't walk on me anymore. I wasn't a doormat anymore. Because why would people change their behaviors, in your life or like mine? Why would
Yep.
they stop using me, right? If I never call them out on it. So by me stepping up to who I was and being confident in that, it was kind of calling them out and saying, like, I'm not doing that anymore. And some people didn't like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I saw a lot of that, when you talk about relationships.
For sure. So I love that you talk about this being a decision. It wasn't your decision. It wasn't your decision that you had those tragedies. That your marriage wasn't working. It wasn't that you lost your child. That you lost your brother. Like those sibling things. Like it wasn't your choice to have those, but it's your choice how you make your story, how you're living your life, and what you take from those experiences. So I love that you touched on both those things right away, that, you made the decisions and you chose to shift, what was happening and, morph them into something that was serving you instead of the opposite, because so many times people are stuck on the bad. And I love that you mentioned both those things. So
Yeah, and isn't that interesting? And I don't know if this has been your experience, Rebecca, but I know for me, like, kind of in the culture of like how I grew up, for a long time, either it was said to me or I interpreted it this way, that to really take all this time for me and figure out who I am and, step into my own and all these things, it was like, don't do that, because I go back to either or versus both and. You either take that time for yourself or you're selfless. By default, taking time for myself meant I was selfish.
right.
I didn't want to be. And so, and I think and I know there'll be probably men tuning into this as well, but I see it a lot in women. So men, this is good for
Right.
you have women in your life, where women feel like it's selfish to take time for themselves, but the
Right.
only way that they can serve those around them is to be fully charged themselves. And so that was, again, that choice, that mindset shift, flipping the script. That was a pivotal moment for me that completely changed really the whole trajectory of my life, you know.
Right.
But it's having the courage, and sometimes that is those relationships, that support system to make the choice, because it's unfamiliar,
Yeah.
it's different, and some people are going to fall away in the process. And
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly why we talk about living fearlessly. It's not about that we have no fears and that we don't have anything to go up against. Like, everybody has their stuff and we all have our fears, but it's really what we do with them and how we look at them and our support systems and what we believe in with them, and like how we have faith over fear,
yeah,
it's just what it is. So I love all that. So what really, I mean, you had a lot of stuff happen at the same time. You said 9-month period, right? So what really compelled you to jump ship from your fear and what was holding you back and really open up to those outlets that were, like you said, available to you and you just didn't really see it that way before? What kind of pushed you to open up more with that?
yeah. Well, the catalyst was I had suicidal thoughts.
Okay.
And the thing of it is my brother committed suicide. That's how we lost him at 19. So,
Okay. Is this your twin brother?
nope, this is my kid brother. So he's
Okay. Just to clarify, because we talked about your twin brother, so not your twin brother.
nope.
Okay.
So it was it was complicated, right? I feel like in a short period of time, I got married, which is super exciting, and that's life giving. And then lost my brother to suicide, and that's a downer. And got pregnant, and that's super exciting. You know, there's new life after I lost my brother, and then
Yep.
had a miscarriage, and that's horrible. And then had to come to terms with, what I really was experiencing in my relationship, and then feeling like a failure in all those ways. And so I got to this point where I'm like, is it really worth living? Is it possible, because we totally did not see the suicide thing coming with my brother, is it possible that that is a better choice? And so when I said to the very person I thought would be supporting me in that moment, hey, this is scaring the bejesus out of me. I'm having these thoughts, and my brother just did this, and I saw how negatively it impacted many other people.
Yeah.
Can you love and support me through this? And the response was, that's your problem. You figure it out. I again felt
Wow.
like I was unworthy of that love, right, from the person that I
Yeah.
was getting it from. And so I say, it's a lot, right? It's taken me since 2010 to be able to share that in that way. But I say that to give, all of you hope for, like, whatever it is you're going through, like, you can get through. And it starts with making a choice to choose you. And so for me, when he said, that's, and it was kind of spiteful, like, that's your problem, like, you figure it out, then I'll have time for you. I just want you to know two things. Number one, you're worth it. You're innately worthy, and have everything that you need as a human being as you are. You don't need to get that from anybody outside of you on this earth. To those of you that are believers, again, I'm a God girl, those of you that are believers, Heavenly Father's always there for you. So what I need you to know with that is you never have to do it alone, and you're not supposed to. And it's when we try to take that on our own and rely on our own strength that things really fall apart. So the catalyst for me was I had this suicidal thought. The pivotal moment was when he said that to me. I'm like, okay, I can let this crush me, right? Break me
Right.
down. This can propel me, accelerate my breakthrough. And I was like, done. Like, I'm doing the thing. I'm going to figure it out. And so when I did that, it took me out of, you said in the beginning how one of my main focus that I want to do with helping women is get you so you're being pulled out of the darkness and into the light, because then it loses the power over you. That fear loses the power over you. It loses the
Yeah.
You start to get this momentum, and things start to be revealed to you that are already available to you. And like, can I get an amen? Like, that is when the magic happens, and to just start really diving into who you are. And so the very first thing when I chose me was like, I got to know what my identity is. Like, who am I? not as a mom, not as a sister, not as
Yeah.
not as a volunteer, not as someone who serves at church, not as a personal trainer. Like, who am I as a human without any of the obligations or attachments to other people? I had no idea.
Right.
If you think back to it, from the time I was born, I was somebody's twin. I was somebody's daughter. I was right? And
Yep.
that's what I was sort of praised for. Like, you're such a patient, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And so I never took the time. And I had a great upbringing. Don't get
Right.
me wrong. When these tragedies happened in 2010, I legit said to myself, as a way to get out of that, I was like, okay, like, I'm in my 20s. If I live to be 100, like, I've probably at max got 3 to 4 more of these. I can hack that, like, I can do that if
Yeah.
I only have this every like 20 plus years.
Right.
But I would be dishonest and not transparent with you if I also didn't say that I had adopted some stories because of lack of my own confidence that perpetuated these false truths, these lies, that I dimmed myself, I lessened myself. So I started behaving like the person everyone else wanted me to be. It's
Okay.
totally out of alignment with who I really was. And so now in my mid-20s, I was in this point where I'm like, sweet Jesus, I get to discover, like, who am I? Like, what do I like to do? What restaurants do I like to go to? What are my passions?
Yeah.
What is my soul calling? What kind of clothes do I like? I mean, I had no idea. No idea.
Right.
So, so that was really cool and freeing too. And I think that's the first step. After you choose you, figure out what is your real identity, just you as a person.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I love that. That brings a really strong point too. Like you said, that was in your 20s, right? And I feel like that's everybody. Like everybody is still finding themselves when they're 20, which is, so on a side note, I've always said my 30s would be like my years. Like 30s are going to be the best years. 20s, you're figuring your stuff out and you're really trying to figure out who you are. And then your 30s is like where you hit it hard and you're like, yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
So that's just where I am right now. Like I feel that. So here we are. But like you said, it's really figuring out who you are and what you have to bring to the table and the gifts that you were given and how you can use those to help other people. So I love how that all goes together. And, we're just kind of, you're great at like leading this whole like thing. So now we're going to dive into like advice and like what you would say to people about overcoming those fears, because like you said, you've had the tragedy, you've had pivotal moments that, could go a different way, and you are working through them and in a very healthy ways. So what advice do you give people for overcoming them or just pushing through them, or however you want to say that?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to really acknowledge, right? And that's two part. I think you've got to acknowledge, like, what are you doing? Some people like to say face it, face the fear. Like, what are you legit dealing with? Because until you know what you're dealing with, where that fear is rooted, you can't create a solution to that. Like, you can go through your own strong will, but it doesn't change the behavior pattern. So you're going to go in you're going to have the same challenge over and over again. So
Right.
first acknowledge it. Then I think you have to accept, right, the help, the resources. It may come in the form of people. It may come in the form of books. It could come in the form of community. But you really have to accept what is available to you. Sometimes that means asking for help.
Yeah.
That means opening up the door for the person that's coming to bring you a plate of lasagna, vegetarian or meat, pick your poison, right? Like, they're saying, hey, here's the lasagna. We're going to cook this meal while you're grieving. But you've got to go, right? You have to acknowledge someone's at the door. You have to.
That's true.
That it's available for you, right? You have to physically accept the lasagna. We'll go with that example. And then you have to access it. You have to actually eat it for it to nourish your body. So I think, like, whatever you're going through, those would be the steps. First, you've got to acknowledge, like, I'm dealing with fear and it is specific to X, Y, and Z. And if you can't do that on your own, find someone who can help you, right? If that's, someone like myself, if that's a therapist, if that's a psychologist, if that's a good friend or a pastor or a mentor. That's the first step. And then the second one, as mentioned previously, is to really accept it. And I think that's hard. Like, that's a hard part. For me, I always felt like accepting was admission of guilt, or accepting was admission of being less than.
Right.
And I say that because I think a lot of people think those are mutually exclusive, and they're not. some of my strongest moments and what I've seen in my clients are when they actually accept what it is that's available to them.
Yeah.
That's powerful. We're social beings, you know, we're called to community. And then the last part would be, again, to access it. You can have all the treasure, right? A lot of times I'll say with my clients, like, God's giving you like this treasure trove, right, within you. Like you've got everything that you need within you. So you got to acknowledge that's there, but then you got to accept that it's yours to even dive into. Then you actually have to like open up the heart space and access it, or it's not going to do any good. It's like a workout DVD. Coming from a fitness background, it's like a workout DVD collecting dust like on the shelf. Like,
but I bought it.
Right. Like, sorry, friends, that's not going to strengthen the muscles, right? Or get you the body you want, or like whatever. You got to access it. And I think when people do that, when they're bold and they're courageous and they're experiencing the fear, but they're living fearlessly by having the courage to work through that. I think it's a beautiful thing. And it's like any other muscle in your body. Like I call it the courage muscle. The more you strengthen it, the stronger it gets. And what's really amazing, especially if you're like an empathetic or a really giving person, is you get to a point where you become really good at that thing, or even a little bit better at that thing, whatever it is. And then you start to inspire other people to do the same. Or you give someone else permission to explore their same fear and work through that. Or you give someone else permission without even knowing it to accept help or ask for help or confront a fear. And you know, when I think of like legacy, like for myself and what I do, ultimately what I want to do is help. Because in my life, I feel like it took me 20 plus years to even start to explore who I am. And so I had to unlearn a lot of behaviors. And so I have 2 boys. I don't have a daughter, but I really believe God's going to give me one. And if not, they'll just have to be adopted in communities. But I want to shift, right, this generation. So that we can impact the next generation. So they don't have to unlearn all of this self-hatred, negative talk. They don't have to unlearn that. They can just boldly walk into who they are. Like, how amazing would that be when you have a little girl and a little boy, but I'm specifically working with females, that can fully step into who they are and own it. Like I can get emotional about that, you know, like I think that's a really an exciting thing to find your voice and know your value and have victory over your life and share that with everyone else. Like, let's do that.
Let's do that. I have a daughter. I love that.
Yeah. Well, that, like the affirmations that you do, I just think that's a beautiful thing. Affirming who you are within, accessing that. It gives somebody else permission to do the same. And so I think, when we do that, that's the legacy that we leave, is we leave that next generation better than the current. What an incredible thing. And to know that you get to be a part of that. It seems so big, right? We dismiss it like, that's not for me. It is. Can't do it without you. Need you. I see you, right? You are worthy of that calling. So now let's step up to the plate and do the thing.
Yes. I love that. Yeah. And that's the thing too, like the affirming with the affirmations is, it's really holding the belief for someone else until they believe it. So like when I first started them with my daughter, I would say, you are beautiful, you are strong, you are brave, you are smart, like all these things. And she'd be like, okay. And she didn't know what she was saying. She would just repeat them back. I am this, I am that, I am that. And now she craves it. She knows like to her core. And the difference between preschool and kindergarten, huge. With like her confidence level and making friends and like actually speaking to other children, like, and being a leader. That's another thing I say, like, you are a leader. And like, she says it, like, I'm a leader. And like, she doesn't even know what that means, but she's doing it. And like, we're getting the feedback from our teacher and everything the same way. So those things are huge. Just knowing, like, even if you don't believe it, saying them aloud, you're actually like engraving it in you, and it's holding the belief before you even actually maybe think it's true, you know? And as you said, the giving the permission. So
like your environment, the interpretation, because your perception is your reality, the interpretation you have of your environment, meaning the people you surround yourself, the things they're speaking over your life, like exactly what you're doing with your daughter, the things you see, the things you read, the things you smell, the things you feel, all the things. Your environment, your perception of that, your interpretation produces thoughts, what you tell yourself about that environment. and those thoughts come down in your heart and they become your beliefs, and then you act on those beliefs. So like hurt people, right? So I feel
Yep.
like people that are hurting in their heart and they're like super, super fearful, that is coming from something that they're telling themselves. So exactly like you said, it's like imprinting, you know, you're telling her these things and then she's like, oh yeah, okay, like I'm gonna do that thing. Yeah, okay, because mom told me to, right?
Yep.
And you said she begins to believe it, and then if she's not there already, at some point she begins to, like you said, you said she's craving it, and then come up with her own thing, you know.
Yeah.
And out of the mouths of babes, like they speak the truth, those little humans, and you just never know the influence or the impact at her ripe, young, beautiful age that she's having on her peers. That's already shifting the generation. So well done,
Yep.
Mama. Well done.
Yay. And I just want to touch on the you gave me a really aha moment too with the lasagna analogy of, you know, having to open the door and actually accept it. Because I have a friend she's working through grieving and she's going through tragedy of losing the love of her life. And like, I wanted to bring her a meal and I was waiting for her to say like, it's okay for me to do it. And then it never happened because she didn't give me that cue. And just really like thinking about that though, like if I showed up at her door, she would have opened the door for me, but I didn't want to intrude on what was happening in her life. So like just that analogy of like, you can prepare this and like show up, but it's up to them like to open the door and accept it and eat it and take it in. So I just wanted to say like, that was a great like connection for me.
And you know what else is cool about that is we think of it like for the person experiencing fear, right? Like how do we break through that? But also, and this can be another conversation at a different time, but also we think of us being able to help people, that
Yeah.
those of us that have an ability to see a need is like, once we get to that point, right, we're courageous and we know innately our value, we're able to step into those situations when people aren't strong enough at that point to do it for themselves, where we can say, okay, because they're in a place, they're overwhelmed. There's so many decisions, they don't make one at all. So it's like, okay, I'm not asking you. I'm going to be
Yeah.
at the door at this time and drop this off. So you can either take it in and cook it, or you can let it rot or feed it to the cats on your front step. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so in just by taking that initiative too, we can really help these people that are depressed or anxious or fearful, or maybe it's not even at that point. Maybe they're just slightly paralyzed because they know they have to make one decision or another.
Yeah.
And I would just say to give people permission to like make a choice. It doesn't have to be the choice. You don't have to have the whole map. Make a choice and then evaluate, because
Yeah.
either it goes well and then you continue to move forward in that way, or it was a failure. You're not a failure, but that experience was a failure and you gain wisdom. So I'm like, sweet, like I'm cool with that. I know what to do more of, or I'm wiser. Yes, please.
Yep.
So it's shifting the script, right?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I love that. Okay, so I'm a dreamer, as you know, and I love thinking about the future. So where do you see yourself in 5 years? You know, you're someone that can move through fear pretty good. You know, you got a handle on how to move through fear and tragedies and things that have held you back maybe in the past, but where do you see yourself in the next 5 years from today?
Yeah. So selfishly, I would like to have 5 kids. Realistically,
You got some work to do, Mama.
I know, right? Getting. And so who knows, like just like that number is just on my head, but ultimately that's up to God, so we'll let him drive that ship. But I really see myself, my husband and I have a dream to be on a farm. We have a dream to be just have acreage, and for so many reasons, just things we can teach our kids, having space. So excited about that. On a business standpoint, what I think that is going to allow is the space to be creative, is the space to create experiences for people. And ultimately what I like, you've asked me this question in previous conversations, and I really just took some time to get still. And the very thing that used to scare the bejesus out of me, and it still kind of scares me a bit because I'm so passionate about it, is being not just on stages that I have been, but being on larger stages and just loving on these women and speaking life into them and creating a shift, right? So that women can come to this experience and know that they are supported, but also know that I am firm in the process that you need to take, and I will hold you accountable to that. And so I see myself like being on stages and doing summits.
Absolutely.
But I also see, like, before it gets to that point, is breathing life into these local women in our local communities and creating connection. So those women, because I believe there's an assault on the family unit right now, can go home and impact their kids and their spouses. And that's how everybody else goes out and infiltrates their communities and countries in the world. And I think that's how you have worldly impact. So even to say it out loud is like, oh,
I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps, people.
Yes. So like, it's big, it's impactful, it's meaningful, and we all do that in different ways. Your work looks different than my work, but ultimately it comes down to loving people and helping them release themselves of the fear that they're currently experiencing. No other fear is going to come along, but just to know, like, there are people that want to love you and breathe into you and support you, and give you hope and let you experience more joy. So you have freedom to choose who you want to spend your time with and how you want to spend it, instead of doing it based on what everybody else tells you. So specifically what that is, I don't know, but it's facilitating experiences for women to know they're enough as they are. What are your gifts? And then use that to shift the next generation. So it's big, but it's exciting.
You got 5 years. You'll do it.
Right. Yeah, see, you need people in your life that believe in you before you do. So I'm keeping you close, Rebecca.
Oh, I'll be right there with you. You're good. I love that. So where can people connect with you?
Yeah, they can go to, we have a website, KoriandFaith.com. Contingent upon when you're listening to this, it's getting a massive upgrade. So where we are most active, where I would encourage you to go, is Facebook.com/KoriandFaith. That's the Kori and Faith business page, or and then we're Kori and Faith all over social media, but we're most active on Facebook. So check us out and let us know that you came from Rebecca's world.
Yay, that's awesome. So what would you want to leave? One last message to tell people. What would you want to leave them with?
I should have known this was coming, but I totally didn't. Before I popped on here, I'm like, Heavenly Father, give me the words, right, that the people need to hear. And so what I would just say to you in leaving is that no matter what you have going on right now, or no matter what you think you don't have going on right now, you have got everything within you that you need. And innately, you are enough to explore what that is. So explore what your giftings are. Show up as yourself. And maybe one exercise that I could give you is to write a letter to your 6-year-old self. And what I want you to do is just pour into that little girl, pour into that little boy, and write every possibility, every potential, every gift that you see in them. And really, it's writing a love letter to your 6-year-old self, and then put it away, and then pull it out in a day or a week, because you're going to be able to see yourselves through an entirely different light when you read that letter to your 6-year-old self. So do that, and then come let us know about it on the Facebook page. And I may or may not have a little gift for you.
Ooh, who doesn't like surprise gifts?
Winning!
I love it. I love it. Well, Kori, thank you so much for your time and your nuggets of knowledge. It was so great to hear more about who you are, what you bring to the table. And guys, go connect with Kori at her page and get connected to her for sure. So I want to just leave you guys and say thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to love yourself and live fearlessly. Thank you.
Thank you.